This time, could I have a motion to move to regular session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. Next on the agenda is the floor to the public. We have one speaker today, Barry Entwistle from the New York State School Boards Association.
Good evening, and thank you. I was actually in the area, and I sent an email over to the district office and wanted to stop by and say hello. I know I've met with Amy previously. First of all, we appreciate your membership to the New York State School Boards Association. And I just wanted to briefly make you aware of the services which are available to you as board members. I was speaking with your communications director and your public relations person. We do travel around the state and we do student news stories. These are full videos that are edited and well produced. And so I've been sort of bouncing some ideas around with your staff here. But these are usually student programs, and we send a news director out, we send a videographer out, and we actually write and produce the story. It's all student focused, and we usually have the board president involved in the video as well. So I'm hopeful, as a result of my early conversations today, that we can actually produce a video for the Oswego City School District. And again, it's part of your membership for the State School Boards Association, so I encourage you to take advantage of it. And I know you have a long meeting tonight, and I served on a school board for 15 years. And this is home, my second home. I did my undergraduate in Oswego. Actually lived in this fraternity house up on the corner here. But actually it was good. And I always have fond memories every time I come back to Oswego because I spent so many years here. And in my career where I am today, I'm thankful for the education that I received in this community over 32 years ago. But I just provided you with just, again, a brief overview of our services. There's a lot going on in Albany right now, and you can see our legislative priorities are all listed here for you, and I'm not going to go through those each and every one for you. But we did come out with a new publication on email usage for boards of education, and we get a lot of questions regarding open meetings laws and how board members and administrators can effectively use email to communicate. And our staff attorneys who are available to you as part of membership dues actually put this together because it was the #1 requested publication that we have. So also understand that we have a research department. If you're struggling with something, if something comes up at a board meeting, and if you're wondering what other districts are doing around the topic, you can contact our research analysts and they will go to work for you and conduct research for you. We get a lot of requests from districts around the state, research on a whole host of issues that are confronting today's boards of education. So I just want you to know that you have 55 people back in Albany who work on your behalf. I know that you get our On Board, which is an award-winning newspaper. We provide services to district clerks as well, which is part of the membership. And all of our video webinars, our training webinars, are free, part of your membership as well. So we do encourage you to take advantage of those. And we're also running summits around the state at no or low cost, depending on who we're partnering with those particular summits. So again, I'm not going to take up a whole bunch of your time. I was in the area. I wanted to introduce myself. Again, Barry Entwistle, Director of Member Relations at the New York State School Boards Association.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you
Very
very
much.
much.
Thank you. Thank you for saying about this.
Oh yes, and I dropped you one of our signature mugs off. And we even brought one for your student rep as well.
Oh, thank you.
Gary, didn't we have this conversation at the ice house? We were talking about.
We did, yes.
And you started telling them.
I didn't want to bring up the, yes, we did at a reception, but we're going to make it happen now.
All right.
Looking
No, and I
forward
say
to-
that in a positive way. You started telling me your story about it. I'm like, that was my grandparents' house where you lived, in the DK house, right?
Yes, yeah, for many years ago. Wow, that's quite, that is really historic. I am going to stop by tonight just to say hello, but I won't be staying there long.
Good luck.
Thank you again for your time, I truly appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you for the mug.
Yes.
Next on the report, or on the agenda, is the superintendent's report. Dr. Dewey?
All right. A lot of items today. Tonight we have 3 presentations in the superintendent's report. The first one is the first component part, a first snapshot of what the 2018-19 school district budget looks like. and I'll be presenting that in a minute. And then after that, we're going to have two other short presentations. One, which was a request from the school board a few weeks ago about our district's code of conduct and student discipline. Then we're also going to have a quick presentation by our Director of Physical Education and Athletics on our new unified sports. So I'll get this budget thing done first. Nancy, you're going to operate it from there?
She took your ticket. Can't sneak up on me.
I think I can see the thing from here without.
Okay, Nancy? Yeah.
Oh, boy. I think so. So as I said, last year we changed the format for presenting the budget, and we moved to the three-component budget presentation style that we didn't use the previous year. There are three component parts of the budget. The first one is capital, and that's the one we're going to talk about tonight. As always, we start with our mission and vision, fully prepared and life ready, and the mission statements that guide our work every day. The budget process is really a three-pronged process. The first portion is really gathering data, and we do this in a variety of ways. We project salaries from payroll, and sometimes there are differences in our projections for payroll. That's largely dependent on collective bargaining, and as you know, two of our collective bargaining units have settled contracts in the last few months, so that has to be reflected in our budget, as well as the anticipation for the settlement of the other collective bargaining agreements that we're currently working on. We analyze a 3-year history of revenues and expenditures and try to anticipate things that may or may not be happening. And the last is to analyze some preliminary governor state aid runs. And the governor state aid runs this year are out. We've done a comparison to previous years. And it's important to point out that historically, and it will be true this year, we anticipate, that the legislative run that will come out in a few weeks, hopefully, usually gives us significantly more money than the governor's proposed budget. And so for the purpose of today, we're really focusing on the budget runs and support from the state based on the governor's proposal. The next portion of our prep work is meeting with the stakeholders, and we meet with all building principals, department heads, and we have conversations about what would their wish list be? How are the functions of their current school year relative to supplies and staffing? What do our trends look like relative to class size and things like that? And then the superintendent and cabinet level administrators sit down together and we analyze these wish lists from departments and schools and try to prioritize, based on the feedback from those principals, the things that we might include in a new budget that would enhance our instructional program or also enhance the support programs within our district, not only clerically but maintaining our buildings and grounds. And then finally would be the preparation of the budget for discussion. We have to calculate the tax cap at some point. We have to incorporate additional initial requests on budgets. What do people want? And we have to consider the use of fund balance and take a look at how we're trending with money from one school year to another and see if there's some money that we can repurpose because of some budget surplus. The next slide is really a snapshot or a comparison of the state aid categories from 17-18, our current budget, to what we're seeing in the governor's run only for 18-19. And you can see a whole list of different budget items. First is the most important line, really, which is our foundation aid. And the foundation aid is that portion of your state aid that districts can really do whatever they want with. So we have our greatest flexibility with our foundation aid. We receive support for UPK, and you can see that, I guess if you go back to foundation aid, you can see 17, 18, 18, 19 year, and then the variance, not only in dollar amount, but in percentage. And we're enjoying a 4% increase in our foundation aid based on the governor, and we're hoping that we see a jump in that. We have a flat state aid calculation for UPK programs. This is an interesting one. We're seeing a 72% increase in the governor's run around BOCES aid. And when we first received this, we have done a lot of inquiring. We've called the Office of State and Planning. We've talked to city BOCES reps who have inquired at SED for us, and we've called State Education Department directly. And we're not getting a really clear answer on why our district is enjoying such an increase in BOCES aid, because this is not typical across the city BOCES. We're the only district that saw this level of jump. So at some point, we just have to stop asking and say thank you. So, and that's where we are right now. So we're seeing a $1.6 million increase in our BOCES aid. High cost aid are programs that have a very significant cost, a lot of special ed programming there. We're seeing a 22% increase there, $176,000. We have private excess costs of private programming. We're seeing an increase there. Hardware and software, we're seeing an increase. And software library textbooks, we're seeing an 11% increase. Our transportation aid is also up, which is really good news. So unlike most years, the governor's run first snapshot of the budget is kind of encouraging.
Wow.
Particularly because we, as I said before, always enjoy an increase with the legislature. And we know that the legislature has given us some indication that they anticipate giving school districts across New York State more money. The concern we have, though, is that maybe some of those monies will be bulleted towards specific things like school safety and security, an area that we really have a pretty robust program in and are spending some additional money to enhance and embellish the programs we have. What would be good to see is some bulleted aid coming from the legislature on school safety relative to resource officers. That would be something we'd be very interested in seeing. Our building aid is up 39%. So our total aid is $30,586,000, which is about $5.3 million, but you have to back out the UBK money that's already in there because that's really federal money. So you'll see that we really are, the net is about $30 million, which is a 22% increase in state aid from the governor.
See, where's the most benefit to us to the district in increases? Is it the foundation aid?
Foundation aid is what we have the most flexibility with, because that's money we can do anything we want.
The others are designated, they have to be used in those.
Right, high cost aid has to go to those types of students, hardware and software, technology have to go to that. So we always are looking for increases in foundation aid. Everyone wants that.
What's the private access cost?
Nancy, want to answer that?
That's for private placement students.
Okay.
Can you explain for them the difference between private access cost and high cost?
High-cost students are the students that could be in a high-cost program at BOCES or at another facility that are not residential.
So you can see there are two buckets of money that support our students with special needs. Most of those programs are off-site, either city BOCES run programs, or sometimes they could be alternative programs or residential. So good news relative to the first shot at this from the governor.
But we can't, let's say we don't use all of that access. Does that go back?
No, that just goes into our revenue side of the general fund budget. Our special needs costs are rising each and every year. So there's no way where we're not going to. That's actually a recoup of students that were in the program last year. So your aid follows the next year.
This is a really interesting slide, and I'm not sure, Nancy says we've shared this before. I'm not sure that we laid it out this way before, but this is a 10-year look back on the foundation aid history, and I've talked about this over the last few years. As you know, there was a foundation aid formula that was put in place, and it's a formula that's supposed to offset needs of particular districts. And in this 7, 8, 8, 9 school year, that foundation aid formula stopped running. It was frozen where it was then. So if you see 07, 08, it's the far left column that Nancy tells me is green. That's the foundation formula base. And you can see that it has increased slightly. Let's jump to the far right column, which is the blue. If the foundation aid formula was running accurately, those are the monies that we would have received. So some would argue that New York State owes us the money in all of those towers of blue. Chances of getting it are, you know, probably not that good. But this is a slide that we use when we're advocating for our district. However, it's also true to say that the stalling of the foundation aid formula wasn't a bad thing for some districts. In fact, most districts in Oswego County. However, it's very bad for small city schools. The next slide depicts our building debt service detail, and there are two portions of this particular portion of the budget. One is our debt, and the other is around buildings and grounds. So if you look at the building debt service detail, the first column are projects, things that we did in our district that cost us money. The next column is the initial borrowing amount on that particular project. And then the third and fourth column show the 1819 principal that has to be built into our budget and the 1819 interest that needs to be into our budget. And then the following column tells you when that debt falls off. And many of you heard me talk so many times during the capital project presentations that a responsible district has a balance between debt fall off and incurring new debt in order to improve your district, because that's what stabilizes your tax levy. So you're going to see in some other slides that in later presentations that not incurring additional debt as a significant amount of our borrowing falls off over the next few years creates a problem with our tax levy and therefore impacts our tax cap. So we'll get into that more, not tonight, but in subsequent presentations. We had 2006 OHS HVAC. We did a lot of work. This is this year we're paying $120,000 and $10,000 in interest, and we have 1 year remaining on that bond. Energy performance contract was a huge borrowing that we did. It's the last year on this payment, $525 in principal, another $16 grand in interest. Last year on that debt, it's falling off. We did a massive KPS and Fitzhugh Park window project in around 2004, and originally it was 2.2 million. This year we have a payment of 190,000 plus 15 in interest. And you can see, just like your home mortgage or borrowing that you do, when your principal, your interest gets smaller as the loan gets older. Our May 2012 referendum was $11.9 million. That included a lot of HVAC work and multiple roof systems. That was $11 million. This year's payment is $685 in principal, another $532 in interest. So you can see that's still a loan where we have a lot of years on, so the interest and principal are very similar. And then our BOCES project, this is our WADA, or our allocation, our 1/9 or 1/10 portion of the massive capital project that was done at City BOCES several years ago. It still has 10 years that we have to pay our share towards City BOCES. This year's payment is $420,000 and $140,000 in interest.
But what are the Excel projects?
Excel is a chunk of money that was offered over multiple years, and districts were able to borrow money to do particular programming around your district. So that's why you see a range in the debt falling off between 2 years and 9 years. Our district did a series of projects over the years, and that although there's a lump sum amount that's due, $54 million still owed on Excel projects, the borrowing is separate, so the bonds fall off separately. So you can see our total interest is about $7 million, principal and interest on our bonding. This slide shows our building debt service principal and interest summary. So this is all in 17-18, where our principal payments this year were 6.4 million plus another 5.1 that we're paying this year. So our debt service obligation this year is down 20% to 1,310,000. The interest, similar with the interest. This year, we're paying 2.3 million in interest. Next year, it drops down to 2,028,000. So a reduction of about 317,000 in interest. So we're seeing our debt continuing to fall off, which creates additional revenue, but creates other problems as well. Separate from that bonding, we have bonding on buses, and we initiated a cyclical replacement program for our buses several years ago. You can see there was a hiccup in this bonding in the 14-15 school year, and Nancy tells me, and some of the more senior board members might recall, that was when the district started seeing that there may be some financial problems looming, and so they didn't go out and bond for buses that year. But we did go out and bond in 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18. Initial borrowing is in the second column. That's how much we borrowed typically for 5 to 6 buses. And then the next column, 2 columns show the interest and principal payments that are due for the borrowing for each year. And then the bottom row shows the combination of our responsibility for 17, 18. Now, it's important to point out that there's a proposition on the agenda tonight for the approval from the board to include in the budget vote for an additional the purchase of 6 buses, 4 regular buses, 4 minibuses, 1 minibus, and 1 mini handicap bus. And we always put proposition for bus replacement separately on our budget vote. And then we recycle the older buses in our fleet. We have a really high performing bus fleet. And that's because we have this constant recycling of our bus. It's interesting because some people say, well, you know, you don't have high mileage on a lot of your buses, but the same can be said for our buildings and grounds vehicles. City miles are tough on a bus, and they're tough on our maintenance vehicles as well.
Dean, I just have a question. So
Sure.
with each one of these, like, you know, yearly purchases of buses, how many buses would that be? Roundabout.
Yeah, it's usually between 4 and 6 buses that we purchase each year, and this year we're asking for 6,
Mhm.
4 66 passenger,
And then
1
the-
mini, and 1 mini that's handicap accessible.
Okay.
Are those, the mini and the mini handicap, are those replacements or are those new to the fleet?
Nancy?
One of them, the wheelchair bus, is a replacement. The other mini is in addition to the fleet. We do a lot of McKinney-Vento runs where we need a smaller vehicle in order to transport students.
And I have one other question. So like, what would be like the typical age of a bus that
Good question.
we do away with?
Nancy?
Anywhere from probably 7 to 10 years.
I think we had a slide last year.
We
that
did have a
gave-
slide.
That gave the age of our fleet and what year they were purchased, and when, we can throw that up next,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in our next, just so you get a sense.
Right.
Dean, the 6 buses that will be on the ballot this spring, is there cost associated with those yet? How much are we?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Nancy, do you have
Look.
that information with you?
Is, to purchase the buses is going to be around $681,000. Because we purchased the buses at the end of the year, we will not have any debt come on for those buses until the following year.
So we're losing 999,000 that won't be on next year, right? That's
Right.
money we don't have to pay out next year.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then a year after that, then the new buses that we approved this spring will come out.
Right.
That debt will come back.
And then a year after that, then the other 999.5 from the 15-16 purchase will fall off.
Falls off.
Yeah.
And then in that, one of the first slides, what Sam says is that debt comes to us, is that 22% increase in the bus funding? Is that go apply to 18-19? I saw a jump and I thought it was 22%, maybe I'm mistaken.
No, that was right.
That's transportation though, not buses,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah, that could be a
Okay.
department, Jim.
I got you. Okay.
Department increase, but not necessarily, the bonding of buses is separate.
Okay.
And then when we replace the buses, So the ones we're replacing, they get auctioned off or sold, correct, Nancy?
Yes, they get auctioned off by Auctions International. Over the course of the last 3 years, we've gotten a significant amount of revenue by auctioning our buses. And as a matter of fact, whenever we put buses up for auction, ours usually get picked up first.
And then that money that we make goes into the general fund?
General fund.
Yeah, yeah. The next slide puts it all together, because I've talked about two different types of bondings. Building bonding and then bus bonding. And this really shows the total of those two. Our building debt service for 18-19, principal was $5,120,000. The interest is $2,028,000. Our total bus is $715,35. So that bottom row shows the combined bonding for 18-19 in the new budget. The next portion of this chunk of the budget is facilities and maintenance budget. And so this portion of the budget talks about maintaining our buildings and the costs associated with the staff in buildings and grounds and the equipment and supplies and things, as well as contracts. So the first column is, you have salaries, contractual BOCE, supplies, and equipment. We're showing you a column of the 17-18 current budget, and we're showing you our projection for what's being built into the 18-19 budget, and then the change in dollars and percentages. Under salaries, you see an increase of $129,000, which would be attributed to the collective bargaining settlement for CSEA. So an increase of 5%. The next one is contractual. Contractual are things like maintenance contracts, HVAC maintenance, trash removal, things like that. Controls in our HVAC.
Elevators.
Yeah, elevators. Contracts that we have to maintain big ticket items across the district and support our buildings and ground staff and the work that they do. You can see, though, that we have a reduction, we anticipate a reduction from 1.8 to 1.7, 153,000 reduction, or 8%.
How do you achieve that?
How do we achieve it?
Curious. What
Well, sometimes contracts are renegotiated, sometimes if we improve HVAC systems, you don't anticipate that the need for maintenance on a particular equipment because we have newer equipment versus older equipment.
And that can also be for our gas, electric, and power. So where we might have had additional money in those lines, looking at the trend analysis over the last couple of years, we see that those market prices have been stable. So now we can reduce those budgets.
The next is the BOCES line, and you might ask, well, what contracts or services do we receive from BOCES? Phones, we have some phone service that we subcontract through BOCES. We also have our risk management system through Patty Serio's office, who help us with our school safety plans and the training that we do. They come in on the opening day and do presentations around right to know and other safety features. So we see an increase in that of 9%. Supplies, very small increase, couple $1,000 or 1%. And then a decrease in equipment. And you'll recall that you approved some additional purchases a board meeting ago or so, and that would be coming out of the trend for this year in terms of our some money that we're trending well on under this year's budget. So a reduction of 64% there. So you can see an overall reduction in facilities and maintenance budget of 3%. So our total capital budget, which is our debt service and our facilities maintenance, 17-18 our current year, 8.7 and 5 million. In our proposed budget, 7.8 million and 4.9. So an overall reduction of about $1 million in total capital, which is bonding and building facilities. Some other building and some other considerations that you'll really see.
Put that slide back up again.
Yeah.
If the debt service is -10 and the facilities maintenance is -3.
It's not
Shouldn't
a,
that be 13?
no, it's not an addition down, it's just the percentage of what this variance is off of the total.
Okay.
So Sam, a reduction of 877,000 from 8.7 million is 10%.
Yeah,
But the total of those two doesn't necessarily add up to 13% reduction. That's, the 3% is of a smaller amount.
gotcha.
I asked the same question of Nancy last week. That doesn't help. Some other budget considerations which are going to be similar as we move forward. Certainly collective bargaining for Octa and CSEA are settled. That was a consideration that we had to take and have. A 3% increase for outside contracts that we've anticipated, and outside contracts come in regularly to the Business and Finance Office, so they're able to anticipate increases in those. And the sale of the Education Center. The Education Center is being shown again this Friday to a very interested party. And we feel really positive about it. We've spent some time over the last week, putting light bulbs in and making sure that it's show ready. And we feel really good about this increase. So hopefully we'll have some good news to share about that very soon. Next steps as we move forward. On April 3rd will be the administrative budget review. That's the second component piece of the budget, administrative. And then hopefully by then we'll have some good news from legislative state aid runs, and which impacts everything and make changes. So really what happens next is, where we aren't with our budget is we're not to a place where we've gone to those wish lists and we know confidently that we have this much money in order to start bringing back programs and support services and things that we want to move the district forward. However, we're also quite confident that we're in a place with the 18-19 budget where we're not going to be looking at reductions unless we determine as a district that we need to right-size programs or staffing. We did a lot of work last year in right-sizing our instructional class sizes in the elementary. You'll remember that we cut 8 elementary positions in the 16-17 budget. We reinstated 5 in the 17-18 budget. And there was some talk that we would look to add additional class room teachers and support service personnel across the district in the 18-19 budget. But right now, we're seeing the class sizes are really sitting kind of pretty. We have a couple pockets of larger class sizes. I think there are 2 across the district, 2 in different elementary schools. And it wasn't the hot ticket this year when we traveled from school to school. Principals aren't calling for additional classroom teachers to reduce class size, although we know where those problems are. But we are hearing some requests for additional support staff. We are hearing requests for additional support in facilities, and I share those concerns. Library clerks is something that comes up regularly. And we have some new and innovative program ideas that we would like to do. Certainly, we're going to embellish our work around trauma-informed classrooms. We're going to take that to the next level. Our Comprehensive District Educational Planning Committee is coming back together in a week to take a look at our Comprehensive District Educational Plan around trauma-informed classrooms and EDI. We're going to visit where have we gone this year with that, and what are the next steps. Irina Gertzman from City BOCES was our facilitator during the development of our new mission and vision, and she also facilitated that work that Linda sat in on last year. Did you get an email about that, Linda? We're coming together another week. Amy's joining the committee. We want to know what are the next steps, and I think we found today when we sat with Roseanne Bain from City, who's going to be our new facilitator, that we need to pare it down a little bit. We had some pretty grandiose plans. We've done great things this year with trauma-informed classrooms. We've embedded PD. We brought people in to do large group presentations with subsets of teachers and administrators. And so many of our teachers and administrators and support staff were able to go to the Ross Green presentation, which was the Sligo County Autism Task Force. And the feedback from everybody was that needs to be embedded into our trauma-informed classroom initiative. And I agree. So there's some instructional things that we haven't added back yet, but we're going to be looking at a delicate balance between the tax cap, which for us is quite high this year, but won't necessarily be a recommendation of the superintendent's office, and I don't think the board would support, it, you know, going over a particular tax levy increase request. A lot of school districts have problems with their tax cap because they need more, and that's one area that we've been quite lucky in over the last 2 years. We haven't needed to exceed our tax cap. We've always talked about needing the responsibility of looking for small incremental tax levy increases from year to year, because we didn't do that previously and we got in some financial trouble. I think the recommendation when the dust settles and we get the legislative run, that we would be asking for a small incremental tax levy increase. It looks like our tax cap is around, what, 4.12%, Nancy? We would never ask for that. We don't need it. We would never ask for it, and we probably wouldn't get it.
Be done.
And if we exceeded that, we would need a supermajority vote of 60% plus one.
So
A lot more is coming.
I have a question.
Yep.
When does the board get to have some input?
After just like last year, after we put all three component parts together,
Right.
and we have to make some decisions on
Right.
just how high you all want to go with the tax levy ask, and what is that bucket of stuff that
What
we
is the
really think is
priorities? Right.
important. We come back together with a budget workshop and get your feedback on, you know, how do we get the most bang for our buck
Right.
moving forward now that we've weighed in,
Mhm.
and move from there.
Yeah, I just wanted
Yeah.
to know when we step in and,
So we create a framework, and then you guys put the frosting on it by
Right.
prioritizing what are the things that
Right.
you think are most important. And we help guide you with recommendations from a program perspective.
Dean, you mentioned a couple times a wish list, and I understand what
Yes.
you mean by that. At what part will that be built into your recommendation to us? Or
Yep.
is that something that's gonna stand alone, and then we can discuss the budget and say, well, let's do this, or
The
let's
way
not
that
do
we've done it for the past 2 years is high priority. Well, it wasn't so necessary in 16-17 because everything went out.
oh,
Mhm.
It didn't
right,
come in.
right.
Last year, we made some decisions at the cabinet level with principals and department heads about what are the most critical items to move forward. For example, I came to the board and right in the instructional portion of the budget, we added 5 elementary classroom teachers back. I didn't ask for your feedback on that. I knew we all agreed that class sizes were too big. But there were some things around athletics, some sports that didn't make the final cut, some extra compensatory things for kids. There was a lot of talk around purchases for buildings and grounds and facilities. So the things that we think we need to build in naturally to move our instructional program forward, we will build in as best we can. But then we're gonna have this prioritized list of things from principals and directors that didn't necessarily make the cut, but we still might have room for, but it might impact the tax levy increase, it might impact pulling something else out to put something in. At that point, we bring those prioritized lists to you in a workshop that Linda just asked for, and we make those decisions together.
Okay. Good.
And certainly at that time, if there's something built into the budget that is a recommendation from me, but we have, 7 board members that really want something else back in, then we could recommend, well, we could trim this a little, or maybe we could pull this down a little bit and get these other things in. I think that's how we put elementary intramurals in, I think a few years ago. And they didn't make the necessary cut, but board members were hearing from parents that that's really important. Or that we were hearing from principals that there's nothing extra in the elementary program. We gotta get some stuff back
I
into the
think that's
elementary
what we all
program.
want. I
Yep.
mean, we want to be able to, because we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that will happen shortly after the 3rd. And we're presenting a little bit later this year because typically this presentation happens in the last February meeting. We got delayed a little bit because of the capital project, but we still have plenty of time between the 3rd component part presentation and a workshop where we put it all together. We already calculated the tax cap. We've already notified State Education Department that we have no plans to exceed the tax cap. But the decision on how high you folks want to go with the tax levy increase has a dramatic impact on what else we might be able to add back. So those conversations kind of happen together. How much tax levy increase do you think the community can sustain? And what impact does that have on the wish list?
The important steps, appears that you and Nancy have already put most of that together. So.
This is the really boring part. This is the part that Nancy and I sit with, and I'm like, now we're gonna get to the fun stuff. Now that we know where we stand, you know, we have revenues and we have expenditures. It's always a shoot in the dark though, because the governor comes out with these runs. And so we're building a budget right now speculating that it's gonna increase, and we'll hope that the legislature doesn't let us down. They never do. They never do. But the key is, and what we should be advocating for, and is an increase in foundation aid and the full implementation of the foundation aid formula. But there are those districts that will be advocating against that. But for us, it's important. Amy, did you have a question?
Oh, I was just gonna ask you, I don't know if it would be part of this or what part it would be, but do we have like a line item that would be like replacement? So like if on a cyclical, you know, yearly, we replaced X number of desks or chairs, or so that we're not, you know, hit all at once with, wow, the whole school needs to be redone, but
That's
that we're doing it on a yearly basis.
That's a really good question, and that's a conversation that I started with Nancy a year ago, that we really need a furniture replacement plan
Mhm.
for our district, and that is currently sitting on the wish list.
Okay.
Had our project passed, we could have probably had money, couldn't we?
Well, we
within the
probably could have
project?
dedicated more of our general
More,
fund to,
right.
but you can't buy furniture in a capital project, but it's
I just
definitely
think it's a
something
good
we
way to
need
be
to do.
proactive rather than reactionary. I mean,
Right.
in some of our walks through, you know,
Yes.
if we saw something that looked a little, you know, ancient, like things like that could be taken care of
Yep.
little by little by little, rather than, you know.
Because right now, this is the way you see it happening, and it's the way it happened when I was a principal, is you dedicate a portion of your building level budget to buy a classroom set of furniture a year, or you buy teacher chairs, or you buy some flexible seating furniture, things like that. It would be a better way to do it, is to build in a replacement plan where you're doing 5 classrooms a year,
Right.
or a
We
school
would-
a year.
We would need to increase the building budget.
We would have to do that. Right now, it's not in there, but we're not finished creating the next 2 component parts yet.
So there could be some wiggle room to be
Yeah.
able to.
But that's on the list as our instructional. I don't want to, don't hold me to this stuff, but there's a lot of things coming out of the list from teachers and principals and directors, instructional coaches, additional clerical support. I know that Dave has asked for some additional support in facilities. And these are all things we support. It's just coming down to a sweet spot between what we want to move our instructional program forward, support our buildings and grounds and our support staff, and maintaining our tax levy increase to what you can live with, and what we think the community will
Will
sustain.
pass,
And,
right.
and recently, they have supported small incremental increases of 2% or less. I'm not saying that's my recommendation yet. I want to see all the pieces fall into place, but it won't be 4.12.
Well, I'm encouraged by the governor's run. I'm glad he listened to me finally. Good job, Sam. And I hope the legislators will do an increase.
They really have always done really they've been kind to us. We're very grateful on the increase in our BOCES aid. And the increase in our foundation aid is very, very helpful.
Very-
And you say they've never let down, like whatever they pushed out in a preview or an anticipatory kind of number, they've always come through with that number.
They never take back, because they know that we're waiting and sitting on our hands,
Yeah.
waiting for these runs, because we gotta pass these budgets.
Right, right.
But I don't know if you remember, if it was last year or the year before, even the governor's run came out really, really late. So we did a rollover. We wanted to roll this out, so we did a rollover budget relative to the governor's runs for the previous year. And then when it came in, it was good news. It's typically always good news. It's the restrictions around the legislative budget runs that you worry about, because we need foundation aid.
Thank you, Jane. Is the next presentation
job,
up
Jane.
here
Thanks.
on the thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all gonna be up
Thank
here.
you. You're welcome.
The next I'd like to introduce Dr. Robert Duffy, who's our Director of Student Services. Bob supervises not only the revision of our annual code of conduct, but part of Bob's responsibility is he sits as superintendent in superintendent's hearings. We have multiple superintendent's hearings, and I'm hoping he's gonna touch base a little bit on superintendent's hearings, because superintendent's hearings are at this extreme end of the result of some disciplinary action that's taken against a student. It's an opportunity for them to come in, sit. Bob acts as the moderator, and so he's gonna talk a little bit about that. He conducts superintendent's hearings. We had a couple really challenging superintendent's hearings today that included some things that happened at city BOCES. But the code of conduct is really I'm not stealing all your thunder, Bob?
Go ahead.
The code of conduct is the district's document that's required to be revised annually, that guides acceptable student behaviors and conduct that's prohibited on school property. It also provides some guidance relative to a progression of discipline and the philosophy of our district, and we hear it all the time in the work that we've done with social emotional developmental health, and certainly trauma-informed classroom, is that the best discipline is one that has a balance of, punishment and an element of reteaching. And we heard that so much from Ross Green. So I'll just turn it over to Bob.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. What I attempted to do is take our 3,000-page document and turn it into a 5-minute presentation. So if you have any questions or you'd like more clarification, like me to hone in on something else in the future, please just let me know. I'll be very happy to do that. So we're talking about the code of conduct tonight and the disciplinary procedures. The first thing I wanted to talk about, excuse me, is within the code of conduct, there's responsibilities for all of the stakeholders in our district. So if you look right here, and I put the page numbers in the code of conduct that address these different stakeholder groups. There are student responsibilities, but you go right down the list, everybody has responsibility when we're all working together in the schools. We have parent responsibilities, teacher, guidance, support staff, administration, superintendent, and board of education. So we all have responsibilities that are listed in our code of conduct, and so it's this thought that we are all working together to make this the best district that we possibly can. But sometimes there are students that do have some conduct situations that come up. Pages 14 through 18, so it gives you an idea of how big that scope is. List these. The Board of Education recognizes the need to make exceptions for student conduct, for student conduct on school property or engaged in a school function. Okay, so right there we're letting all of our students know that here's our expectation, and next we're going to list the rules, and then we're going to talk about being able to be responsible and respectful of those rules. And the last bullet down here says that students may be subject to disciplinary action up to and including suspension from school when they, and on our next slide, I don't know if you can see that or not, but these are the different things that if they engage in these, there's going to be some sort of disciplinary action. The first is that if they engage in conduct that is disorderly, engage in conduct that is subordinate, engage in conduct that is considered to be violent, and each one of these things that I'm hitting, I want you to know that within the code of conduct, there's a lot written, so I'm just trying to condense this. And some of these even make references to different regulations, so there's a lot that's involved with just these little bullets here. If they engage in conduct that endangers, and this is a really important list, and when I'm doing superintendent's hearings, I always come back to this list. Endanger the safety, morals, health, or welfare of others. So it's not so much just one thing, but it really encompasses a lot about what our expectations are for our students. If they engage in misconduct on a school bus, obviously, and if they engage in any form of academic misconduct. And again, in that code of conduct, it lists everything out. When we have a student who is engaging in conduct that's not becoming, you have to realize too that we do have different kinds of supportive interventions within our schools. I've listed just a few of them here. This is by far not an exhaustive list. We have peer mediation, which we're trying to bring to the forefront and do more. We have, obviously, if we have a student who we feel may need some sort of different intervention, special education, we have evaluations and assessments that we can do. We also have behavior intervention plans. Those are for our students with special needs. And we have building support plans, which are pretty much the same thing in that we are doing a functional behavioral assessment to see where those kids are and what those triggers are. And then we build a plan and we bring everybody together to say, these are the things that we're going to do. And this is how often we're going to check in to make sure that we're doing it. And we're going to take that data and we're going to see, is it working? Is it not working? What do we have to add? What do we have to take away? So it's a living and breathing document that we put together. There is student counseling. We have our counselors. We have our psychologists. We have parent conferences too. We bring parents in a lot of times. Sometimes I'll do it, we'll have conferences right after superintendent's hearing, but sometimes just before, where they come in and they're kind of nervous, they don't know what's going to happen, they don't know what the expectation is. So we spend a lot of time walking through that. We have group counseling in all the schools. A couple of the other things that we do offer, we're associated with youth court and Farnham services. Now, I bring those up because when we do a superintendent's hearing sometimes and we're talking about suspensions, we may say Johnny Jones is going to be suspended for 2 months. However, if he goes to youth court or if he joins Farnham services, we will let him come back in a week and we'll keep the rest of that in abeyance. So he still has a suspension, but we're letting him come back to school. So it's kind of a good faith measure on both parts.
Can I jump in for that?
Please.
For a minute, Bob?
Sure.
I think that what Bob said is really critical. And it goes back to my comments in the beginning. We're always balancing punishment with some element of reteaching. So, and we know, and Lisa Marie Carter is going to be presenting in a few weeks about some issues that we received from state education about our suspension rate for students with disabilities, or our suspension rate overall, or our student absenteeism. So we also know that if we're supposed to be student-centered and fully prepared and life-ready, they have to be here. And sometimes these very, very long out-of-school suspensions do not contribute to getting to the checkered flag. So we're looking for those unlucky kids and getting at the triggers for why they're making the decisions they are. And if we're able to do, if they can meet certain criteria, and we believe that they've made some significant growth relative to the development of pro-social behaviors, we want to get them back into school. Even if there's a 1-year suspension, if we believe in everything is telling us that they made significant improvements in those behaviors, we want to get them to graduation. We want to get them back in school.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, from a staffing perspective and a support, how do we manage that, right? So, I was presenting at the middle school, and we had a couple students that were supposed to be out of school suspension, and they were actually in the room. And from what I understand, they went classroom to classroom to classroom, but they had somebody with them the whole time. So how does that get supported? Where does the staffing come from? How does that decision get made?
I'm not sure, Brandon, exactly specific to that situation, but we have a variety of types of out-of-school and in-school suspension. Sometimes they can be on long-term suspension at the Oswego High School and at Oswego Middle School, because the quality of instruction is easier if we have staff there. They shouldn't be in the gen pop necessarily if they've done some egregious act and they're in a longer term or shorter term in-school suspension. So I don't know why they would be wandering around, but we staff a classroom, and Heidi can address this probably better than I do. We have a long-term out-of-school, in-school suspension where they're provided with services for up to 2 hours a day in the morning and afternoon session.
So if a student is serving either a short-term or a long-term out-of-school suspension, we are required to provide 1 hour for elementary, and I know you have a slide coming up,
That's okay.
and 2 hours for secondary at a minimum of tutoring. So if we have established that you are not a threat to others, then we do allow students to come to school. They're escorted to the out-of-school suspension tutoring room. And then we have teaching staff able to work with those students to keep them caught up academically. The whole, obviously we don't want to say, oh, you can't come to school anymore, because school is where we make the connection with the student. If it's a student who has had other issues and we are not ready to allow them to attend school for tutoring, then we have at-home tutoring.
As you're well aware, I was nosy and asked a question, right?
Yeah.
I was given the feedback that it was out-of-school suspension, and that they were in school, and that they had to have supervision all day.
Yeah.
And they weren't in an in-tutoring room.
Maybe
They
some-
were sitting in, listening to my presentation.
So Brandon,
Sam.
I'm over here, if I can talk to you about that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk further, so as to not waste a lot of
Yeah.
time, but we have a couple of different options in our school. So it could have been our intensive learning center, where sometimes it would be perceived as maybe an in-school suspension room, but we do it a little bit different, where we also have structured study within that room. So any student that was allowed to go into the general population with an escort would be a student that may have had a suspension for something that was nonviolent. It would absolutely be nonviolent. They would never be allowed into the general population at all. Like Heidi said, they are escorted from our main office to our out-of-school suspension room, which we call the tutoring center, because the belief, and especially in the Oswego City School District, I have found, is that we use restorative practices. These kiddos, we want to get them as quickly back into their classrooms with their fellow classmates and their teachers, to get them, we're restoring, we're showing them how to make amends and move forward.
Giving them opportunity.
Yeah.
to do that.
Brandon, were you there during the P-TECH presentation?
I was.
It could be that somebody made a determination that that particular student, maybe this is the first time they were ever in that classroom, but maybe P-TECH was a model that maybe they're thinking this child would fit into.
Would benefit
because this was
from.
an out of the ordinary situation, maybe they really wanted them there. I don't know.
But we can talk, Brandon, call me tomorrow.
And I think it's important to note, and Bob and I have talked about this on many occasions, our students are individuals, and no one black and white answer is good for all of our students. We're always looking at them individually, and there's shades of gray in every decision we make.
Understand.
Okay, Bob.
Such is life.
So,
Yeah.
Heidi, as you said, considerations when suspension are requested, you have to remember that fair isn't always equal and equal isn't always fair. And so what we try to do when we sit at a superintendent's hearing and talk about what kinds of discipline is going to be used, we consider a lot of factors. I've listed some of them here, but the age, the grade, the grades that they earn, their attendance, whether they are a special education student, whether they have a 504 accommodations plan. And then we ask for parent input, teacher, others who would know them. A lot of times we'll have representation from different outside agencies who have a vested interest in these kids, and so they show up and they tell us the backstory, they tell us what's going on, and that really does influence what we come up with when we're talking about the discipline that's going to be imposed. Other considerations, obviously, we're all looking at trauma-informed practices right now, and so that's the new lens that we're looking through at our kids, and when you hear some of the stories, you're like, it's a wonder that they're here at all, some of them. And so we really look to take all those things into consideration.
Probably I should interject as well that because we have a progressive discipline approach, a child wouldn't necessarily jump from never having been suspended to a 6-day suspension. We typically would start with the least restrictive suspension for something that's reasonable and nonviolent, like a 1-day, and maybe the next incident would be 2 or 3 days. However, they get to a certain threshold, or a particular infraction reaches a certain threshold, even if it's the first time, violence, drugs, weapons, they are brought to a superintendent's hearing.
When we come to a superintendent's hearing and someone has been charged with violence, drugs, or weapons, the state recommends that we start with a year's suspension. And that's generally what the middle school and the high school, when we sit down and we talk, we're saying, okay, this is what the state is recommending, here's where we start. But now let's look and see, what can we do to bring them back sooner if it's appropriate? And so right up here, I just wanted to, first right there, the prior disciplinary record, like Dean was just saying, if we have somebody and this is their first time through, you know, we're going to be a lot more lenient than if this is the third time we've seen them this month. And so all those things play into what we actually come up with at the end. Some of the things, sometimes behind the scenes, we don't really know what's going on. Like if you were to walk into a classroom and you might see maybe a child who is acting out and maybe the teacher doesn't appear to be addressing that, there are a lot of things that we're looking at putting in place so that we are still able to discipline the child at a later time, but right there in the classroom, we're still able to offer dignity to that child. And once again, you know, it's a case-by-case basis. What works with one kid won't work with another one. And so we're constantly looking for that balance. You know, we have to make sure that they learn from their experience, but we also have to make sure that we keep our relationships open with them. Okay, just a little bit about the suspensions. All suspensions require tutoring. We just talked about this. There are ISS placements, so in-school suspension we have, out-of-school suspension we have. Again, minimal, what they asked for was 1 hour at elementary and 2 hours at secondary. What we do is we utilize the tutoring centers both at the middle school and at the high school. And if we have kids who are more appropriate not in the school setting, we are able to use the public library, we're able to use their home, we're able to use other places, other public places to provide the tutoring for them. Oops, okay. So just kind of to sum up what we have at the district to address some of our kids. I've just listed some of the things that I just knew off the top of my head. There are more, and we are always pursuing more opportunities. We have obviously our school resource officer. We have a team health educator who comes in once a week. We have, of course, all of our counselors. We have extra counselors that come in on different days of the week. We have Farnham, which is for drug and alcohol. We have Teen Intervene. We have Ned, who is our McKinney Mental person, works with all of our kids. We have Jamie, who is a STEP advocate. And we also have preventive services. And if you ever wanted to know anything in the world about all the services that are available for all the kids in the county, you need to talk to our staff of counselors and psychologists, because they really have their fingers on the pulse of what's available for the kids out there. And they are constantly bringing more opportunities into the schools so that we're able to utilize them for the students. Okay, so I just want to thank you for the time tonight and ask you if y'all have any questions right now.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Bob.
I
Oh,
just
thank
have,
you
I just
very
have one
much.
quick question.
Amy has one.
So
Yes.
like, I appreciate, thank you for putting all that together.
Sure.
But what about just like the day-to-day disruptions or, you know, lack of respect? Like we all hear stories of kids, you know,
Sure.
I don't want to swear, but, you know,
Yeah.
swearing at teachers.
Yeah.
And, you know, how are those things handled so that it's the same level of expectations and respect is requested of all of our students across the board, and it's being handled equally?
Okay.
So,
That's-
do you want-
Right, so that is in the code of conduct, yes.
Right.
But the things that we look at are the things that we have had for a while, like our PBIS expectations. I know over at Fitzhugh, Donna is doing Leader in Me.
Yeah.
And Carrie and Heidi and I have had talks about what other kinds of programming can we build in to build up our kids, to get us all to the same level again.
So, Amy, if I can, all children are on different places on the continuum. And it's important to look at them individually because we have maybe a Jack Spalding or a Matthew Callan, maybe they swear, how we can bring them in, we could give them a detention, they're gonna learn and they're not gonna do it again. Then you've got your kiddos that this is common practice in their home. This is how they speak in their home. This is how they're spoken to. So we certainly have what our expectations are for our students. And at the middle school, we have a school pride program. We took a little bit of PBIS and a whole lot of, what do we want for each other. It's not a one size fits all kind of concept. So, we could talk about this. I mean, it's definitely something that's important. We certainly want all of our students to be respectful and to be behaving in the ways that they do, but given that they come from various backgrounds and with different types of traumatic events in their life, we're learning so much about trauma-informed classrooms and just trauma-informed schools and how we handle children. And I think that that's so important. And I'm excited to be part of this district because, we've sat in on meetings where we're with other districts. And I got to say, I'm proud to be part of this district because I feel like we are progressive. We're moving towards, it's a new way of thinking and a new way of handling children.
And Bob, you can go back to the one slide of some of the strategies you have listed, the planned ignoring. Students have to understand that every student in the classroom is not going to be treated equally. So if you swear, I might choose to ignore you, but I will take you out in the hall afterward and have that conversation. I'm not going to ignore the fact you swore, but I might not have to address it right then and there. There's different things teachers have to learn, different strategies in order to handle that type of situation.
And thinking about the students you have in your classroom, what's their motivation?
Right. Why
At
are
the
they
time
not-
of the swear, are they trying, is that
But
the only day they
back
get?
Oh, yeah, there's so many things, and like the workshop that we said, learning, so I agree, I think that those things are important, but I also think that it's important to, I think it would go hand in hand, that, I get that some kids do it for a totally different reason than what a kid like maybe mine or yours would do. However, I don't think that means that we, and I'm not suggesting that this is what we do, lower the expectations because, well, they got a bad rap, so we'll just, we'll let that one slide, but we're gonna hold this one over here to a higher, that's all, I'm not suggesting we do that, I'm just asking the question that, how is that handled, across the board, so that we are raising everybody to a higher level. Maybe what they're not getting at school, we're raising the level of expectation, or what they're not getting at home rather, we're raising the level of expectation at school
And
to
I think
teach
you
them
probably
those
saw
things.
in most of the tours that we've been on so far, every school has a character ed program in place.
Right.
And that, absolutely none of the work we're doing is ever about lowering the bar
Right.
or lowering our expectations. If anything, it's about increasing them and knowing that all of our students can meet our expectations. But it's also about teaching and modeling empathy.
Right,
and
which I think
kindness.
is great.
So it's that collaboration between whether it's the Leader in Me or the 7 Habits for Effective Teenagers or some of the new work that's been going on at the middle school. I think we really see that across the board, we are all on the same page in terms of increasing those expectations that we share with students.
And now how would you do, because it seems to me that programs like that, I love what, Donna with the Leader in Me, I think that that's awesome, and just seeing how those kids are thriving. But to me, it seems like once you get to middle school and high school, it's a whole different ballgame. And that's where I taught, was middle school and high school, and so I know. So it's like, then what do you do at that point? Because certainly, they're not gonna buy into, PBIS and all that, so what is it that you do at that level that they engages them and gets in their head?
I think that for us is what we have found is it's the connection.
Right, you make connections, not only, it opens the doors,
Right.
and it's not only connections with the students, it's connections with the parents. And you set the expectations, you have those conversations, and you have those meetings, and you bring them in, and you have those talks.
Right.
And also, during those connections you make, you also find out if there's other things that using the services we have with all the resources that we can put in place to make things better for them. And it's constant work. And we have these students that we call frequent flyers, they're in all the time, but what they do is that if you listen, you start listening to the kids, they will tell you where they're coming from, and you could turn, there are a lot of successes from these connections that you make with the students. And it's just starting that conversation.
As we've done more of the raw screen work too, we've started diving into what lagging skills are present for kids to better understand where the behavior or the inappropriate X, Y, or Z is coming from, to then go back to that lagging skill and teach that gap. And so you're then looking at the child differently, and when you're looking at what that lagging skill is, and then diving into, oh, well, this is what it is, whatever it might be, then you have a targeted way of attacking that to give the child different strategies and skills to utilize as they move forward in life.
So understanding that that's a very fine balance, right? From dealing with a child or a kid that is not acting appropriately, right? So are we getting feedback from teachers constantly on, is it affecting their performance? Is it affecting their day-to-day rigor? Are they spending too much time one way or the other? Is it disruptive? Those types of things. Are we gathering day-to-day feedback from teachers and support staff on how much time it takes to deal with specific individuals or stuff like that?
Feedback is never a problem from our teachers.
No,
And
And
it's
more
always,
from our support staff.
it's always helpful. All the information we get is very helpful, and
So
also.
do we react on it, I guess is what I'm saying?
Well,
'Cause
so
I
we
could give
respond-
feedback every day.
We-
If nobody's listening or it's going on deaf ears, that's a different story.
We're used as a proactive tool to make the changes with a suggestion from a teacher. We might talk about putting something in place in the classroom for a child. We might have a situation where the student goes home and the parent's not getting the whole story. So we might have that moment where, if anybody, I'll date myself, but Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, where we have teacher meetings where the student will have that meeting with the student, we'll have the meeting with the teacher, so we put everything out on the table, and we communicate the fact that we're here to help the student, and these are things that just have things that we gotta work on. And a lot of times those open eyes, and we start in a whole different way to do that.
Sometimes the student will be removed from a classroom and will be brought back within 5 minutes. Sometimes it's just, they need that moment, but at the middle school, and I know you do something similar, at the high school, we have formal team meetings with the teachers, where we also have our school psychologist and our school counselor. And so what you're talking about, Brandon, where, they have feedback, this is a formalized time for them to give feedback, but trust that our doors as administration are open, and those teachers are coming in and out, sharing stuff, looking for advice. I have found at the middle school, the teachers want to know how they can help the situation. So when they're coming to me, it's very rarely, I need you to do something, because they know that we will do something. It's more or less, can you give me some advice on what I can do in my classroom? At least that's what I'm finding at the middle school.
And they're also using the new skills the raw screen skills, the lagging
Yes.
skills, and the plannings and things like that. So the conversations are happening, and people are starting to say, I used this and it worked. Or we have this new tool called the ASLIP that we're going to use on a student. How's that going to work, and how are we going to make that work? So everybody's using these trainings that we've been doing.
It's really starting to shift the conversation. We have students with behavioral problems.
I think it's great. Jenny?
I was going to say the same thing Pat said. I think our teachers are feeling like they have really great tools right now with all the trauma-informed work that we've been doing. And so when they're coming down to the office to say, it's not what should we do or what are you going to do, it's what can we do, and we're having conversations with kids and with parents, and so it's a wraparound from everywhere.
Yeah.
I will say that time needs to be afforded to all the teachers that work with the students that are having these lagging skills. And that's something that we really need to look at, is affording all of the teachers to sit down at the same table and talk about the same lagging skills and what we can do as a team, because I can't say across the district that that is definitely happening.
And I would agree, right? So,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna speak freely right now, and I get a lot of feedback from teachers, support staff, and everything that I'm hearing is wonderful, right? And it sounds like we have a robust system in place and that we're addressing things. But there's a lot of concerns out there. There's a lot of concerns out there that there's teachers that can't do their job on a daily basis, that they're distracted in a lot of different ways, not only from a student standpoint of view, or other things, lack of substitutes, those types of things, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but all of this sounds wonderful, but we do have concerns out there, there are issues out there, and I'm just asking, are we addressing them, are we putting them in the forefront? Because the same issues keep coming about, and it's not by the same people. So I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, I think.
It's not all roses.
Right. No, it's not all roses.
No.
Oh, well, we just,
Those of us
hard
that
work
do it every day
every
know
day.
that.
work has just started.
I think too,
Yeah.
what's most important, I think the feedback that we get most consistently from any teacher, K through 12, is our kids have changed. Many of the children are the same as they were, but many of them are not. And it's a daily challenge to deal with students that are coming from different backgrounds, different types of families. And so all the things that you've been hearing about are the full-fledged efforts to address our new reality. And, it's a challenge.
So
that
great lead
we
into my
attack
question.
every day.
Yeah, the great lead into the question I'm gonna talk about a little bit later. Are we staffed appropriately? Do we have the right support staff to deal with the changing kids, those types of things? As an administration, I hope that we're looking at that and saying, from a gauge perspective, yes, no, maybe, or we need help, we need more. Those are questions that I think that I'm sure that you're getting to, but really need to be looked at. Because if we have completely changed, we have to change with it. And if you need support with that, then you need support.
Brandon, I invite you to
Remember that
come
when
and
we
to
get into-
shadow me any day that works for you. It would give you a really good picture and an understanding of what you're talking about looks like, and I would love to have you. A lot of good work is happening, and with any type of change, it takes time. There's no easy switch or easy flip
Right.
to this.
Please don't think that I'm suggesting you're not.
No.
Right?
Well, and I'm thinking,
We all hear
Brandon,
it.
to remember that when we're
We all hear it.
sitting, making decisions as board members
I would agree.
and keeping our money as close to the students and supporting the staff as we can.
I agree 100%.
Right.
And I think to go along with what you said, Jen, too, I brought it up at the last board meeting. I think that it is important, and that's what I said at the meeting, was making sure that with this progressive change, I mean, this is necessary. We have to do this. I mean,
Yeah.
we all who have kids in the district who work in it, we all know what's going on. And so I think we all collectively could agree that change needs to happen. But what I think is really important is that making sure that everybody's voice is heard, and that the teachers have an opportunity, a forum, a roundtable, or whatever it is that you want to label it, where they can say, these are our concerns, this is, you guys can navigate through those waters together, but just with change, I just hope that everybody, all, working parts in this.
And I'm not-
And again, and I'm going to say the same thing Brandon just said, I'm not saying no one's doing it, I'm just saying, I think this is an exciting time to be a part of the district, and I just hope everybody together collectively feels heard, I guess is my biggest thing. Make sure
And I
everybody's heard.
think there's some reservation of some individuals, some teachers, support staff, that maybe they don't want to come forward, maybe they don't want to talk. I don't know if there's past history on being, I don't want to say threatened their jobs or whatever the case may be, but we have to have an environment where they're able to come forward, they're able to talk, they're able to speak freely they're able to ask for help, express their challenges, and invite that. Because that's the only way we're gonna get better, is if we take that feedback. If we push it away or put our hand up, then shame on us.
Well, I think as we go into the budget season too, to listen to the staff and faculty to what are your needs. If there's pieces that are missing, tools, whatever it might be, it may not necessarily be staff, it may be what else would help you to go through, and I think that's important for us to know as we go forward.
You know, to Brandon's point about maybe a staff member not wanting to come forward, I think every one of our buildings have building reps. They don't
Yes.
have to come to administration, they can go to the building rep, and the building rep can bring the concern forward.
And they do,
There's
we
always-
have liaison meetings within our building.
Yeah, there's always a way to get your feelings known, I believe. Just gotta take that step, and that's up to you to take the initiative.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much, I appreciate
I said 4. You said 5, I said no 4. Rhonda, how much time do you need?
3 minutes.
You can have 5. You can have 5.
Sweet.
We love your conversation.
We have lights in 3 minutes. I think there's out.
Stretch my legs.
There's some old stuff.
break or something, jumping jacks,
The lunch in November.
sit up.
Passing the burpees.
All right,
Got it?
yeah.
So I've asked Rhonda to come in tonight. I've been sharing some information with the board over the last several months. One of the very first conversations Rhonda and I had this summer, when she was coming in, we were transitioning her as our new director of athletics and physical education, is an interest that I had in what's called unified sports. It was spreading across our state. I had an exciting opportunity to attend unified sporting events in my wife's district downstate, and I said, Rhonda, do it, and she did it, and this is exciting for us.
Yes, we're gonna do it. So, unified sports, last year was not new to Fulton, but it was new to all the other schools that are listed, and we are gonna do it something that's gonna be countywide. So, it's going to be Fulton, Mexico, Central Square, Phoenix, and Oswego. We are gonna play, we'll have one round robin game outside, so Oswego actually has ESM. We will travel to ESM for one game. What it is, it's a program that partners up students with disabilities and students without disabilities. So on the court at a time, the integrity of basketball, that's the first year that you participate in unified sports, it's a basketball program. If you continue to participate, you then can implement bowling as well. So that would be something that's an opportunity for us next year if we want to visit that as well. So what Unified is it's dedicated to promoting social inclusion through shared sports training, competitive experiences. It joins people with and without intellectual disabilities on the same team. The teams are made up of people of similar age and ability. So for our program and for all the other programs right now, it's any students that are in 9th through 12th grade with intellectual disabilities. There is a video, however, I'm hearing that the sound does not work, so I'm not going to show you the video so that we have to try to read lips or anything, but Karen said that she will share this so you can watch the video. The video is a video from last year, which there's a culminating event at the end of the season. We will have that at Lemoyne College, where our county and Onondaga County, so all the schools in Section 3 will be there at Lemoyne College participating in this. They do different awards, they do different games, different activities with all the teams so that all the students can interact with one another. The video will show you last year's event, and it will talk to students with disabilities and students that were their partners on the team. And it's very moving, and moving in a good way, because it really talks about how not only what they experienced on the court then transferred into the cafeteria, it transferred into classrooms, it transferred into hallways. So it really was a program that was very monumental to all students and to all adults that actually actively participated. So please make sure you watch that, but have tissues ready. So it is the sport of basketball that they're going to play. There's going to be 3 students with that are special education partnered with 2 general ed students on the court at all times. All students are active players. So what that means is if I'm a student that is without a disability and I'm on the court, I'm not just passing it to
one of the three that has a disability. We're actually engaging in an authentic game. The only differences that are occurring is that there's no shot clock. So they will do double dribbles, they'll count traveling. At the very beginning of the season, we are going to be hosting here at our school, because we have 2 gymnasiums next to each other, is a multi-scrimmage with all the teams that were listed there. So it's kind of a round-robin multi-scrimmage tournament. That'll be on April 19th, and it'll be in the old gym and the new gymnasium, and it starts at 4:30. I have all that information on Schedule Galaxy, but I can also get it to you. But in the very beginning of that, there are officials. The officials have reduced their fees, so it is through the assigner that we utilize officials for the boys' basketball season in the winter. So they're true officials. Like I said, they've reduced their fees for the unified sports. And at the very beginning, when they are at these scrimmages, they're going to talk to students about traveling. So they're going to kind of call it, stop the game, give a little education, and then go from there. And then as the games progress, you're going to actually see the whistle blow and different things like that. So it'll be kind of a learning experience that'll have a little evolution to it. And then the last 2 slides. So we have here, it just gives you a little bit more detail. There's no shot clock. The ball that's used is the girls' basketball, the girls' size ball. So we obviously have those. Special education, or Special Olympics for the first year will give us $2,000 to be able to substantiate this program, and then next year it's $1,000, and then it's kind of on your own. But that gets you kind of off and running, so it'll help with the payment of a coach. There's also a youth advisor that really gets the students without disabilities involved in the capacity that we want to get them involved in, whether it's helping out with running the clock, they're helping out with practices, and or actually going to be participating on the team based on their schedule. And then this is the scrimmages and schedule. This is also up on Schedule Galaxy. All students that are going to be involved, whether it's students with disabilities or students without disabilities, will be approved through Family ID, just like any other sports program or any student athlete is. So we'll make sure that we are tending to their medical needs. For the purpose of our students with disabilities, because it's based in their IEP, for their practices, which is 2 practices, which starts on Monday, and we'll have them on Monday and Thursday until the actual scrimmages start, which will be on April 19th. They're about 45 minutes to an hour long. They'll be in the old gymnasium at the practices, and we are responsible to transport those students home. So that 3:10, they'll be on a bus, they'll be ready, and they'll be transported home. We've made all those arrangements, so everything is ready to rock. We had our final meeting today, knowing that it starts on Monday with the first practice, and everything is all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, which is a good thing. So we have a lot on board. But there's our schedule. We are hosting, besides the scrimmage, 2 home contests. One is April 30th and the other is May 11th. We have concession stands already set up. We have cheerleaders that are already going to be there, so it's going to be very big. It's going to be very authentic to what we have during the winter program with our regular basketball teams.
Right, I'm assuming this is a co-ed program?
Yes, this is a co-ed program, and right now it's for students with, from 9 through 12.
Now, so then, how is the team selected, and how many kids are on the team?
So I reached out to Megan Donabella and other special ed teachers, and they reached out and got some students that are involved. It is students with intellectual disabilities. We do have a couple students that we're going to need to potentially address some medical concerns, but we have more than enough staff that's on board that we have everybody in place in case we need to administer some kind of medication. Right now, we have 19 general ed students that are on the roster. We went with 19, we capped it at 20, but we're with 19 right now because some of those students are also playing a spring sport. So we're going to have a sign-up sheet so we know what they can actually do. Not all of them can make all the games, so that's why we wanted to get more so that we're guaranteed that we have enough kids
So
to actually travel to the games and stuff.
Same group of kids necessarily going to every single one of the
Correct.
games. It'll be a kind of
Yeah,
rotating.
yeah, because we wanted to make sure that the first year we got as many kids that wanted to be involved. And like I said, some are going to just only be able to do practices, some are going to be able to do just home games, some are going to be able to do home and away. Mother Nature's not been the greatest so far for spring, so we might have a lot of rescheduling of contests. So that's why we wanted to have a higher number there.
Yeah.
And we actually have 12 students with disabilities that are on the roster.
Okay, great.
So, yep.
And
I
forgot what I was just gonna
And we have 11 adults helping out.
I love the
Yeah.
program, how are we paying for it financially?
So we have the first year we have $2,000 that's coming from Special Olympics. They give that as you sign up for it. Right now, the budget for this year that we have is gonna be $5,040, and that's with transportation and everything, but we have $2,000 that's already cut off that, so it's about $3,000 budget. We probably can hone in on that a little bit more, because when I've talked to the coaches and different things, we have people that are gonna run the clock for free, so we don't have to pay somebody to run the clock at a home game. We
Are
also.
coaches being paid?
We have one coach, which is gonna be, you're gonna see his name coming up soon on the docket. It's Brian Perrott. And then we also have a youth advisor coordinator, which is a Kyle Brown. So you'll see their salaries coming up. But other than that, a lot of it is towards just getting the program off and running. We wanna make sure that, we do have to pay for officials, we do have to pay for the transportation for the students with disabilities to be able to get home from practices, but also get to and from away contests. And then the other expense that we have is that we're getting them uniforms, because we don't have any right now, so we're getting them these shirts so that they'll actually feel like a team, and then we're gonna get 10 balls.
So this will be put in this year's budget for next year.
And are we required to use Section 3 officials, or can we get volunteers?
We have to use Section 3 officials, just because it's within the section, but they've reduced their fees by a lot. So we're not paying the full fee of what we would typically pay for if we had an official come to, say, a JV or varsity basketball game. So,
Is this gonna expand to other school districts in our county?
they have the option to do it. It's most of them right now. I think the only couple that didn't do it were APW, Pulaski, and Hannibal. But I think it's just because right now they're trying to, in the process of figuring out how they're financially going to be able to do it. But Bolton was the only one that did it last year, but on board this year is us, Mexico, Central Square, and Phoenix. So we're the fourth edition that and we actually all tried to, we all sat down and really tried to keep the transportation at the minimum. That's why we wanted to have as many within the county that we could, so we could travel around the county. But we do have the one outside event, which is a crossover game, and then we have the culminating event, which is at Lemoyne College. Any questions? But please watch the video. The video truly is something that you're gonna gain a lot from, and our students at the end of this season, which will be on the 21st, will be able to be in that video for the next time. It's really
And you're
great.
selling shirts for the unified?
We are
schools?
not selling them. There is a portal that I sent out an email to everybody that you can, if you wanna purchase the shirt to wear on the day of the unified games, you can do so, and it's strictly through a portal where you decide you wanna order, it's a long sleeve or a short sleeve, you pay for it right there, and then what's gonna happen is it's actually coming from B&T Sports Shop in Fulton, and there's gonna be a box, and in the box it's gonna be, so for example, if I'm at the middle school, it's gonna have Rhonda Bullard is gonna be in a little bag, and it's gonna say my shirt, and then it's gonna say Brandon Legault, and then it's gonna say Samantha Spalding, and then that's all gonna be boxed per school, so that whoever orders it can wear it the days of the game. So
I
it's kind
sent
of
that,
shows
I
you
sent
can-
that link to them.
Oh, great, thank you
Yeah.
so much. So, yep, so please order a shirt if you'd like.
Yeah.
Rhonda, is there a way to get the unified sports team labeled so that you can get their games downloaded to your calendar? You know how you can sign up for specific sports teams?
It's on there right now. We have it on Schedule Galaxy, so it's also on Buck Buzz. So those two programs interlink.
Right, but there's a way that we can get, like, let's say if I wanted varsity softball, I can click on the varsity softball and all of those game dates, places, all transfer into my calendar. I think it might be helpful if we were able to get that as well.
I think, yes, I will check into that.
Do you know what I mean?
It's
To have
in
their-
Schedule Galaxy right now. I
Okay.
think you can still do that.
All right, I'll have to check it
Yeah,
out.
because we just made sure that it was all in, all the games, even the scrimmages are on Schedule
Okay.
Galaxy, so it should be able to do that. I'll make
Okay.
sure that, I'll test pilot it and make sure that it goes through. And if not, then I'll put it on a Google Drive so that we can somehow get it on the calendar.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rhonda.
So you-
Dr. Eli, did you have any other items for the superintendent's report?
Yes, sure. I wanted to just, it's cold in here.
It's cold there. That's
The AC.
That's how it works.
Well, it's the first day of spring, it turned over to
I just wanted to acknowledge
Starts with
the
an
regional
L.
spelling bee that was this weekend. And we had it was great, went 21 rounds. Oswego Middle School girl won, or Amy, I can't remember her name, I should have written it down. It was in the front page of the paper, so.
Iris,
Iris.
yes, yes.
It was really, really great. She's a Fitchie Park student, and,
Middle school.
well, Fitchie Park, she came from Fitchie Park.
Fitchie, yeah.
And she was able to spell words that I never heard of. And in some cases, I think were pronounced incorrectly.
Yep.
And she still was able.
It was amazing, yeah.
She's-
I mean, there was word, and we were both saying, I'm like, I'm a good speller, like, that's definitely like a strength, and I was like, kept nudging my husband, I'm like, ooh, I'd be really good in a spelling bee. And then they got to the last couple rounds, and I'm like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
don't know that one. And she was just like, I mean, just knew him, and so confident,
Well, if
it
you were
was like,
lucky, you
wow.
got bagel and not
Yeah. Some word I never heard of,
some
yeah.
of these other words.
Embryo.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, all I know is Sam screwed the whole program up at the end.
No, she didn't. She had it right.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
You did have it right.
You were the only one right.
I told you.
Yeah, and when they changed it, and I looked at Sean and I said, that's not what Samantha said in the beginning, like, and then sure enough, you're like, yep, I was right.
Yeah.
No, that was great, that was, and what a impressive, I mean, it was cool, because Daniel was in it, our youngest, and he was scared out of his mind. I mean, he's like our youngest, like, Mr. Confident, like, walks into a room, and he didn't even look like him on the stage, and he was all shrunken into his seat, like, just absolutely scared. But
Right.
he came out of it, and he's like, Mom, that was awesome.
That's gotta
Next
be
year, I'm gonna
so-
be so good, because I'm gonna know what to expect. I'm like, there you go, bud.
That has
he
to be
was-
so intimidating for those
Oh my gosh,
fourth
I can't
graders and fifth
imagine.
graders get up there in that big room, that
Yeah,
big auditorium.
with some of those kids who were in 8th grade, I mean, so much bigger than them, and,
That was
yeah,
very
it's-
impressive.
yeah, it was really cool.
It was great.
So thank you for all the time you guys put into it, Sam.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It was good. Thank you. The last thing I wanted to mention is that tomorrow is World Down Syndrome Day. And many of you probably don't know about that, but Riley School has been putting together a fundraiser, and I wanted to put a shout out to them. Faculty and staff, student council, Tiana Smith is a 6th grader, Riley was the orchestrator. Kate McCrovey, who runs the student council, was working with Tiana, and Tiana Smith designed original T-shirts for Riley School for tomorrow, and I have mine. And all the proceeds go to Gigi's Playhouse, which is in Syracuse, and it provides hospice and instructional programs for students with Down syndrome. So I don't know why they thought this was my size. Apparently, I'm wearing my snowsuit under it, but most of you probably
I don't know about that.
My grandson has Down syndrome, and his mom is a 2nd grade teacher at Riley, and so I told them I would put a perk out for them. So that's it.
So what's the program tomorrow?
It's they've raised money. Every Tiana Smith designed and customized all the T-shirts for faculty and staff, which they all bought. Most of the proceeds from the T-shirts go to Gigi's Playhouse in Syracuse, and kids are bringing in quarters and nickels and dimes and things like that. So we're going over there for a photo op in the morning, and Seth's going to join us at 8 o'clock. So
Nice.
Very nice.
that's it.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Item A is minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of March 6, 2018. And there is one typo on there. I have Alexandra Cummings at our last meeting as being present and absent.
Yeah, I was there. I was not there. I was
So I will correct that. The special education report, C, minutes of the special Board of Education meeting of March 7th. Treasurer's consolidated report, monthly budget status report, and the Oswego City School District financial report of February 2018. E is the monthly budgetary transfer report for February 2018. F is the fund balance projection, January 2018. G, extra classroom activities fund report, Oswego Middle School, February 2018. H is the extra classroom activities fund report, Oswego High School, February 2018. If I could get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the Board of Education. There's a couple items that will go on for the budget vote. The first one is the seeker resolution of the Oswego, of the City School District of the City of Oswego, New York, determining that the purchase of transportation vehicles is a Type 2 action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and is not subject to further review. I can read the full resolution if you would like me to.
No.
If I could have a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The second one is the bond resolution authorizing the purchase of transportation vehicles by the City School District of the City of Oswego, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $681,106, and authorizing the issuance of $681,106 serial bonds to pay the cost thereof. If I could have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? C is the resolution approving a proposition of the purchase of transportation vehicles for submission to district voters at the May 15, 2018 school district annual meeting. If I could have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? D is the agreement between the Oswego County Board of Elections and the Oswego City School District budget for the budget and board member election. If I could have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda, I will turn it over to Carrie Class for curriculum.
A is New York State textbook law. The approval of 2 textbooks at the Oswego High School. One is meteorology, which would be grades 11, 12, and one is for economics, which is grade 12 textbooks. The requests are handed to you because they didn't get uploaded to board docs, so they're in front of you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Or, I'm sorry, could I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, I will turn it over to Dr. Sweeney for personnel.
A is a professional retirement. Upon the presentation and recommendation of Dr. Bui and the school board, we accept the following personnel items. Whereas Joni Dean has served the students and staff of the school district as a literacy specialist for the period September 1, 1992 to the present, and has been a most responsible, conscientious, and dedicated staff member in service to the school district. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Education of the Oswego City School District hereby acknowledge the faithful service of Ms. Dane upon accepting her resignation for the purpose of retirement effective May 11, 2018, and we express our grateful appreciation to her.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
B, a professional retirement. Upon the presentation and recommendation of Dr. BOE and the school board, we accept the following, whereas Mary Schickling has served the students and staff of the school district as an elementary teacher for the period September 1, 1984 to the present, and has been a most responsible, conscientious, and dedicated staff member in service to the school district. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Education of the Oswego City School District hereby acknowledge the faithful service of Ms. Schickling upon accepting her resignation for the purpose of retirement, effective July 1st, 2018, and we express our grateful appreciation to her.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
C, another professional retirement. Upon the presentation and recommendation of Dr. BOE and the School Board of Education, we accept the following. Whereas Barbara Wheeler has served the students and staff of the school district as an assistant principal for the period July 1st, 2001 to the present, and has been a most responsible, conscientious, and dedicated staff member in service to the school district. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the School Board of Education of the Oswego City School District hereby acknowledge the faithful service of Ms. Wheeler upon accepting her resignation for the purpose of retirement, effective November 30th, 2018, and we express our grateful appreciation to her.
Any discussion? Motion?
Move it.
There, to talk about why it's so far in the future? Yes. So typically when we have teachers and staff members retiring now, it's usually for July 1st.
Right.
When we have people to replace who will take us some time to find the replacement and to allow an appropriate amount of cross-training to occur. So because Mrs. Wheeler is going to be leaving us on November 30th, and the start of school also starts the observation cycle, we would want our new administrator to have enough time to work with her, start that observation cycle. And we also want to start looking in enough time to get the best pool of candidates,
Okay, that's
as opposed
exactly
to
what my
waiting until
concern
later
was,
into
because I
the
was like,
fall.
if she's leaving then,
Yeah.
then all the, you know,
I'm gonna try to replace her this summer.
yeah, okay, that was my concern.
So you give her 6 months with
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
D, professional staff recommendation, resignation. Rachel Edwards, a teaching assistant here at FLS. She has been on a leave and has decided to resign to pursue other interests.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
E, professional staff recommendation, leave of absence. Stephanie Kropp, elementary teacher at KPS, extending maternity leave from 3/14 to 4/19.
Any questions? Motion?
Move that.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
F, professional staff recommendation, probationary period, an extension of probation or a dual agreement for Abigail Molinary, an elementary teacher at Charles Riley. It will be effective 3/21 and a new tenure date of 9/1/2019.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
G, extra compensatory position recommendation for Minetto. This is for after-school homework help. The list is a little bit longer than we typically bring to you. Minetto hasn't run after-school homework help in a number of years, and so there are lots of teachers who are interested. Again, this will always be an as-needed basis, so we just have a pool of teachers who will then indicate to Mrs. Sullivan their availability, and she'll work through a schedule.
Jenny, is this the, Daniel just brought home a sheet that was the homework helpers, or is that something different? Like with,
Yellow sheet.
yes, that's what this
the one.
is?
Yep.
Oh, okay, cool. I was, because when he got it, he was like, does this mean I get to tutor somebody? And I was like, no, I think that this is like the teacher tutoring the students. Okay, thanks.
Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
H, extra compensatory position recommendation for OHS and OMS for athletics, spring 2018, boys modified baseball coach, Troy Kocher, as presented.
Any questions? Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I, extra compensatory position recommendation for OHS, athletics, spring 2018. We've got a girls modified lacrosse assistant coach and the boys JV lacrosse head coach. We had spoken about them at the last meeting. And then these are the two unified sports coach and advisor positions that Rhonda just talked about.
Any questions?
So this brings us up, so we're all squared away for spring sports with these two, with the modified, and then.
Yes.
Okay. So it was an assistant coach we were looking for some reason I was thinking it was the head coach, but it was the assistant coach for modified?
Yes, for the both modified.
Okay, awesome, well, good, glad we got to go.
Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
J, extracurricular volunteer recommendations for athletics for our unified sports volunteers. Megan Donabella, Kirk Mulvihill, Corinne LaDuke, and Ryan Berger.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
K, support staff recommendations, probationary. Mackenzie Carr is a new part-time teacher aide at Riley, and Judith Fitzgerald, school monitor, part-time at the middle school.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
L, support staff recommendation, permanent. Brianna Partlow, a teacher aide at FLS, and Mary Sear, a typist part-time at FPS. They've completed their probationary periods and are now being put forward for their permanent.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And M, our substitute and temporary employees for this particular board meeting.
Any questions? Motion?
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, I will turn the agenda over to Nancy Squires for finance.
There's only one item for finance tonight, and it's a transfer from $58,000 from BOCE services to our service municipality. It's to cover a payment from the city of Oswego for their civil service administration.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is items from board members. Would anyone have any items for tonight?
I got one. I apologize, Mary, I meant to talk to you, ask you about it, and I didn't, but last week, the KPS musical got canceled because of the snow day.
Correct.
Is there, I mean, it's rescheduled for, I think, Monday night in the gym?
Yes, it is.
So there's no way to get it back in the
At
auditorium?
the theater, yeah, now, we didn't find availability soon enough, in order to be able to do that. But we wanted to value and respect the students that spent so much time preparing for the musical.
Yeah.
It's a building, we got to see a shortened version of it, and I have to tell you, it was probably one of the most enjoyable ones that I've seen, and I don't even like Willy Wonka and Chocolate. But they were, she cast the different the spots so beautifully, and the kids were doing such a great job that we are providing an evening event for the families on Monday night at 7 o'clock, and Tuesday morning we're having an assembly so that everybody can watch the full thing.
Good.
So,
Just,
yeah.
it's something just popped into my head. So this is at your KPS gym, so it's
Yes.
just a gym. Would you
Yes.
be able to do it in the evening, like at another elementary school that has a stage?
We kind of talked about that a little bit, with the logistics and getting everybody there and stuff like that, just a little difficult.
Yeah. Just to give them more of a
See,
feel.
Mark
A lot of
was
the
our
families are able to participate when it's local because of lack of transportation.
Right.
So there's benefits of having it at the theater, but there's also benefits of having it at the
Right, right.
Yeah. But we
sent on a Remind app, but we also sent it out an email blast, and we sent home flyers with students, so the families all know that we're rescheduling and having it on Monday evening.
Yeah, I heard it was really, really good too. My,
Yeah. Oh my God.
my 7-year-old said it was
Fabulous.
really good. And so I just wanted to make sure that they were getting what they could. I know you do all you can, but
Yeah.
make sure that we could from our end if there was any
Yeah.
way to help them out.
They were so good, we didn't want it to stop.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, going home? Oh. And you would normally expect a yay!
Yeah.
Right, yeah, we were a little disappointed that we had to cut it early.
I just have a couple things, just reminders. We have the event, the Oswego County School Board, the event on, is it the 28th? I didn't bring my sheet,
Yeah,
but I did. It's on food allergies, so it's, everybody's invited. Anybody within a school, a parent, obviously the board, Dean, I know I'm gonna go. But it will have a panel, there's some great presenters, just talking about the problems with food allergies, how to handle them, and then also policies within your schools. So I think it would be great if we could have a good show from Oswego going to that. And that is on the 28th, and that is at Sandy Creek. And then the other thing was the event at, did you get everybody's response for that?
City.
At City? Okay, so we're.
No, yeah, the ones that wanted to go.
Okay.
I did
so-
reserve.
Perfect, all right, so I just want to make sure that was done. And then the last thing is, I said at the last meeting, in way for us to do like a mid-year evaluation, the board, I printed out the goals that we came up with, so, and I said that, and then I had so many papers with everything that we got at the middle school, it got lost in the shuffle, and I came home and it was still in my hand. So I'll pass those out now, and you guys can look at them, and then we'll just, talk about it at the next meeting, so that's everything I have.
I have one more thing I wanted to add that was in the superintendent's report that I forgot to mention, that there was a request at the last, we had a conversation and tabled an item on the agenda last meeting about traveling abroad. Nancy was able to gather two opinions, one a legal opinion on traveling abroad, and also an opinion from our insurance carriers. We've included that information in your paper packet tonight for you to review.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll put it on the next agenda under the superintendent's report to talk about. We'll have a resolution, and maybe not have a resolution prepared, but after we have some conversation about it, then if you want a presentation from the advisor, we'll bring her in. Okay?
But there's still, this isn't.
Summer 19.
Right, this isn't.
It's no urgency.
Right.
Okay, that's what I was.
They want to get going to
We're not holding
create.
them up with anything, okay.
Well, they probably would tell you you're holding up their fundraising, but
Right.
I think the information that Nancy and I provided is really important to read.
Okay.
Because it's,
Yeah, the liability.
yeah,
They do the same thing on that.
huge. That's all I have.
Would there be any other items from the board? Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You may adjourn.